Hi, hello, welcome to my channel. So today we will be doing a easy slash beginner friendly garland. I don't know why this whole morning when I've been planning this out, I keep thinking lanyard in my head, but it's garland. I personally have a banister going upstairs on my stairs that it looks super bare, and I typically hang garland. This year I wanted to make some little pumpkin garland, so that's what we're doing today. All you need is going to be 2 skeins of yarn. I have baked clay, the loops and thread that I get from Michaels. This is a size 4 yarn. I believe this is size 3. You can also use size 4 if you have it. These are just 2 yarns I already had, which was great. I'm using a 525 hook. You can use a 4, you can use a 5 for your size 4 yarn, or you can use a 4.5 for your size 3 yarn. You know, if you have more hooks than I do, use whatever feels appropriate. A crochet needle or a yarn needle, and a pair of scissors. So I've only been crocheting I've technically been crocheting for about a year, but I've only really been into it since the beginning of 2023, and I've been slowly getting more and more into it over the past several months. Yeah, so I would still consider myself a beginner. I'm still learning a ton. I'm not a big pattern person, but this is super easy and doesn't take a lot. So we're going to do a very quick tutorial on how to make some little pumpkins, and then measuring out our wall space or your mantle or wherever you're going to be putting this, making that, and then how to finish it all up. So let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to start with my orange yarn. Let me unravel it a little bit to make it easier to work with, and we don't need a long tail here. So I'm just going to have a tail. Now we're going to do a single crochet. Oops. And I already did a second pumpkin because I missed out on saying a couple things the first go around. But we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for our starting crochet. And then we're going to go not into this first loop, but into the second loop and do a single crochet. Then we're going to go back into the same loop and do another single crochet. If you're not super familiar with a single crochet, or you are a beginner and need a refresh, you're going to push through the top here, yarn over, pull, and then yarn over, pull through both. I'm probably not the best person to explain that, and you might not have been able to see it, so I'm going to show it again. I'm put through my hole here, yarn over, pull through, and we're going to go all the way through here. So this is for like a chunky pumpkin, like the first one I showed you here, and I think I'm going to do 3 of these and then 3 like tall pumpkins. So if you want to do chunky or tall or slightly like asymmetrical pumpkins, you can do that as well. And then we're going to go back into this final chain and do a last stitch. So we're going to yarn over, put through, and then going this way, we're going to go not into this first hole right here. We're going to go into the first real one, and we're going to go through both halves of the V. So we have the V on the top. Some ones you go through the front, some you go through the back. We're going to go through both for this and continue our single crochet all the way through here. Sorry if my fingers technically cover anything. And we're going to go through every V or section or hole, however you personally want to call them. I don't really call them anything because normally I'm just mentally thinking to myself. We're going to go all the way through this back one as well, which is always a pain in the butt for me. To kind of, as you can see, we're kind of getting like, I call it like a boat shape because it's getting smaller at the bottom and it's getting a little wider. We're going to pull through again and create another V, but this time skip the first V, go the second V again for our last time, and keep going through every single little section here. Section, holes, V's. I think you're gonna have about 8 stitches across here. So you started with 6, end up with 7 or 8. And then this pain in my butt of the last V over here. Pull through. Now we are gonna make it larger, so we're gonna do our extra V there. And we're gonna go into it. I made it too small. Let's try again. So we're gonna pull the yarn up. Gonna go through it here to make it wider. This is gonna be the widest part of our pumpkin. Gonna keep going, and then after this, we're gonna do one more of this size, and then we're gonna start shrinking to kind of try and get like a slightly rounded off edge compared to something that's gonna be a little boxy. I'll also talk about how to fix the boxy edges. See my cat creeping around. If you hear like background noise, it's because my back door is open. My cat's out there. It's a good way for me to keep an eye on him. So for this last one, before we start shrinking, I'm gonna go into this. I'm not gonna expand out anymore, but I am gonna keep it as wide as it is and go through every single one. So by this point, you're gonna have 10 stitches if you are a counter. And now we're gonna start dropping them. So that's the widest part of our pumpkin. It is looking a little boat-like, but we're gonna start rounding it out. So I'm gonna skip the one that makes it wider, the one that makes it even, and go to this one, technically the second or third one over, depending on if you count that extra V there. So this will be This will be 9 stitches instead this time. I'm gonna go like this. Go into this one, skipping that pain back one there. I'm gonna do the same thing again where we're shrinking. We're gonna skip this little half one, the first real one, and then going into this one. This one will have 8. Because we're not gonna go into that right there. We're gonna go over. And all this, the like pointed edges a little bit, you can fix after the fact like I did with this one with your tails. So if you're getting a little bit of pointed edges, kind of like this one is, definitely keep that into consideration with pointed tails. So we're gonna skip those, and this will probably be our final row here. I'm making all my pumpkins a little bit different, kind of just going with the flow here. And I'm gonna finish off right here. And then I have actually I'm gonna go one more loop. There we go. And now my pumpkin is done. I'm gonna cut off from the main yarn, pull it all the way through. And that's definitely gonna be pointed, but when we weave these ends in, this is gonna be pulled down to soften it. So I have 3 pumpkins so far. Mine are all different sizes, which I particularly wanted. I think it looks more natural. And I'm gonna do the last 3 for my personal pumpkin liking. You can make as many as you'd like. All right, so I just finished my tall pumpkin. You can kind of see the difference. My little short pumpkins, my short and chunky ones, these will definitely have a little revamp once I tie in the ends. And this is my tall pumpkin, which I actually think is quite cute. So we're gonna tie him off here, and I'll kind of do a quick little how I did him. He actually ended up a lot rounder. So if you're like a perfectionist, I recommend the tall pumpkins. They're pretty cute. Well, they'll be a lot cuter when they have some green on them. All right, so let's do a little tall pumpkin. This we're gonna start out exactly the same, and it is also going to be a single crochet. Pull that through, and we're gonna do 6 as our starting chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just like the last time, we're gonna skip this one, go into this one, go back into it again, and go into the next loop for our 3rd chain, or what are these called? Our 3rd stitch, our 4th stitch, 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then, so that's kind of our starter. Gonna do this. We're gonna go back the other way. So we're gonna go into our first like big V. So when you lay it out like this is kind of what I was talking about the last time. You see this V here, but when you look to the side, he's like really tiny. That's why I call him like the half one, because that's really only if you want to add length. But we're gonna skip that and go into technically the second one, like I was talking about. I'm still learning how to do like tutorials in these videos, so I have a lot of work on my end to do, and I hope you guys can be patient and learn alongside me here. But we're gonna do 7 stitches again, and we're gonna kind of do this all the way up. Oops, got a string tangled there. So we got our 7 stitches, and we're gonna kind of go up. I think I did how many rows? I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I did 6 rows up and then started shrinking. All right, so I actually did 5 rows, and now I'm gonna start shrinking it. So we're gonna go up to this row, we're gonna skip 1, 2, and go into this one here to kind of round it off. We're gonna keep doing that until we're up to the top, which I think we'll do 3 rows of this for this particular pumpkin. Every time I try and film a video, I get those cut. All right, so we're not gonna go all the way to the end like we do when we're trying to keep it nice and wide or larger. We're gonna go 1, 2, go into this, the 3rd one. Do that to go up. Like I said, don't worry if your edges are a little like squared off like this one. That's why you can stitch in your yarn, weave in your yarn. All right, so we're gonna do that again. We're gonna skip the last one, go 1, 2, 3rd one. This will be, I think, our last row here. We're gonna go all the way, second from last, and we're done with this little. This one's obviously not as tall as I could make it. You could definitely make yours taller, but this is how tall I made mine. So there is that, and I have 5 pumpkins, and I'm gonna make, I think, at least one more. I'm gonna go over there and visualize and see if I personally need more, but definitely make as many pumpkins as you need for your personal garland. This is the last of my tall pumpkins, and as you can see, it has a very flat top, and pumpkins aren't, they do have like a flat bottom-ish, but they're not super flat. So I'm gonna try and round that out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of weave in towards the edge here, try and round that out, and then kind of weave back this way, some, get back in here, and so I go towards like kind of diagonal inward here to try and round it out. Ta-da, makes it nice and rounded, and then we're gonna kind of go to the other corner with the same piece of yarn, kind of just weave our way in here. And if you are new to using a crochet needle, you want an easy tip to get your yarn into here. I randomly learned this on Instagram, and what a blessing. You basically fold your yarn in half over it, pinch it tight, and then push it through. It's great with if you have nails, and oh my gosh, what a absolute wonderful trick I found. Thank you, Instagram. And I'm gonna go through here, and once again kind of go up diagonally once, then kind of weave back through here, kind of another part, go back up diagonally, and round out our edges a little bit. So I'm going to do that up here as well, and I'm going to kind of weave this up to where I can tie these two together and trim them off for the back. Oops, this for whatever reason decided to have a huge loop right there. Don't know why. Oh no, I'll have to fix that. There we go. But I'm gonna do that with all my little pumpkins, and then we'll get to the stems. My pumpkin has all of the yarn woven in. So we're gonna pull out our green. This we wanna leave a tail, and since this is nice and curly, I'm actually gonna make, I'm not gonna leave it this long, but kind of like how on this one, I'm gonna leave like one where it kind of looks like the vine hanging off the pumpkin. So here, unlike the pumpkin, like making the orange part of the pumpkin, you do want to leave a little bit of a tail here. This time we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I got it, 7 to start. And for this, if you made pumpkins like bigger or smaller, you're really gonna want to keep this in mind. So for me, I want mine to kind of like stick partially down, give it a little bit of a 3D effect, and you're gonna wanna be able to loop it where you have enough room for the main part of the garland to be able to go through it. Because this is also a great technique where if you just want to make different little dangly pieces and keep the same garland. So for me, 7 is going to be enough. Now, if you're using a size 4 yarn, you can just do a single crochet again. But since I'm doing a thinner yarn and I want both my ends to be down at the bottom, I'm gonna do a half double crochet. So we're gonna go into technically the second hole again. And we're gonna do our half double. If you're not super familiar with a half double, you yarn over. And I'm gonna go back into that same one again. And we're gonna pull yarn through, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. The half double, for whatever reason, has just been my personal favorite. It is a bad habit. I almost always do it, so that's part of the reason why I enjoyed doing this one, because it made me kind of step out of my usual half double and do a single crochet again. Now I'm doing a half double to kind of get like a little bit of texture to this thinner yarn. Also making it a little thicker, because I would have had to do 2 single crochet rows if I did a single crochet, and then I would have had to weave this end all the way through, and it's just easier to do a half double. So that's all we're gonna do for this. I'm gonna once again leave a little bit of a longer end here, longer tail, a longer end. We're just gonna tie that in. And I'm going to use, oops, dropped it, my yarn needle. So I'm gonna pick which side will be my front. I'm trying to see where, did a pretty good job tying in, weaving in the ends. This side has that, so I'm gonna make that the back. And I'm gonna pull, since I want to have kind of like a little dangly piece, I am gonna pull it from the back here. I think that's, yeah, actually no. Oh yeah, that's how I did it. Me sitting here mentally arguing with myself. So I'm gonna once again weave through here, and I'm gonna go through all of my orange and then just through the very tip of the green and pull my yarn through, and then do that the same with the other side. Go through the green so it's nice and flat, all the way through the orange, and then through the corner of the green on this side. Now you will eventually tie this off, but I am not going to, because I want to make sure I have enough room to put the chain of the garland through, and then we can tie it at the end and trim up these. So that's what your pumpkin's gonna look like for now, and I'm gonna do that with the rest of my pumpkin. All my pumpkins have their little stems. That means it's time to do our last piece, which is going to be the chain, the main long piece of garland. I'm not super familiar with garland, so I don't know what this is called. We're just gonna do a starting chain. This is gonna be long, and the length of this is really gonna depend on the place you want it. I know for me, this is gonna probably be, because I think it's about 5 feet is the length of the place I'm gonna put this. So this will probably be about 6 feet. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on my starting chain, and then I'll show you some measuring. Sorry, my camera's moving. My son, for whatever reason, is crawling under the table right now. But yeah, I'll get to my starting chain, and once I get to long enough where I can kind of measure with where I'm putting it, then I'll kind of show you how I'm gonna measure. I hope you cannot really hear my son's show he's watching behind me, but this is the spot I'll be putting it, and this is kind of like the amount of droop I want. So yeah, I basically am kind of measuring it out this way. Pretty simple, and I just have a little bit further to go because of this slant. Like, it starts out not too bad and then goes up pretty high. The second one isn't gonna have, I think, as much droop as this one does. So yeah, I will just finish this up and then we'll get back and talk. My starting chain is done, and I'm actually going to leave it as a starting chain. This is going to be an easy, simple project, and I figured that honestly is going to be the easiest. It also gives us enough wiggle room to weave all of our little pumpkins on here as well and have them hang. So yeah, that's what I went with. You could do a single crochet into this if you want something thicker, but I wanted just the thin, almost looking like a string or a ribbon holding it. That's what I went with. I'm going to put all my pumpkins Like I said, I don't have any of the ends weaved in. They're just kind of loosely attached here. So I'm gonna weave all my pumpkins, and I'm gonna go back and forth between the chunky pumpkins and the like supposed to be taller pumpkins. I accidentally did my taller pumpkins kind of on the side, so oops, that's okay though. So I'm gonna weave all my little pumpkins onto here. Probably be smarter if you went 3 on one end, 3 on the other. But, you know, sometimes I don't do things the smarter way. And then I'm gonna make sure they go on easily. Can tighten these back. Weave all our little pumpkins on, and then once they're weaved on, I'm going to tie these off the little strings. I'm going to keep some of the curly cues, kind of give it a little character, and others I'm going to cut. Here is the finished product. They are pretty minimalist. I definitely could have added one more pumpkin on each side, but I did run out of yarn. So this is a start. I think I'll get more yarn and make at least one to go right here. But this was super easy. If I would have sat down and done this, this probably would have taken maybe an hour tops. You can see each little pumpkin. This is also easy where you can make like little ghosts. You can make these into jack-o'-lanterns. If you have little felt, you can draw little faces on them. You can also move these around if you want to add more, or you can stitch them in place. You can hang them up, come through with yarn, stitch them in place, you know. Do whatever your heart desires. But yeah, this is the finished product.